Thank you, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and good morning, Debbie.
Good morning, Monica.
I'm excited to talk to you today.
Excited to talk to you. We've known each other for a few years.
Yes, in transparency, we've known each other for a while. But today is your first time as a featured author at the National Book Festival. And we're here to talk about one of your newest books, The Friendship Train. So before we dive into the book, I want to mention that you read from The Friendship Train this morning in Story District. And we'd love for you to tell us, for those who weren't there, what the book, which is based on a really heartwarming story about children, is about.
The book is nonfiction. It's a true story about something that happened in 1947 after the Second World War. We often don't think about what happens after a war. And in Europe, after World War II, there was hunger. Farms had been destroyed. And the Marshall Plan, the historians in the room will know of the Marshall Plan, the great United States effort to get Europe back on its feet with aid and food, wasn't stood up yet. And Europe was facing a pretty harsh winter with not enough food. So somebody here in Washington, D.C., a private person, had the idea of running a train from the West Coast, from California to the East Coast, New York, and have people all along the way donate food items that could be sent over to Europe. And it became huge. It was just a great success, famous. It's one of these stories famous at the time, on front pages across the country at the time. And the amount of food that was collected was very great. And the food went over on 4 giant ships to Europe, and in return, after people were back on their feet a little bit over there, there was a very, very nice gesture of thanking all of the states and Washington, D.C. over here who had sent food to help them through that hard period. That, in a nutshell, maybe a big nutshell, sorry, is the story.
Yeah. So what was it specifically that drew you to the story and inspired you to write about it?
Well, first, I want you all to know that I am not old enough to have been alive in 1947 when this happened, just to be clear. But my husband and I like to watch war movies, and in particular World War II movies, and we were watching one on Turner Classic Movies a couple of years ago, and after the main feature, they were expendable for war movie aficionados. They showed a newsreel from 1947, maybe a 10-minute little film about the Friendship Train. I thought, oh my goodness, this would be a great, great book. So that's what hooked me. And the other thing that sort of made me, that made me really want to tell this story is that, well, my mother was a refugee from Nazi Germany, so I had that connection to the war. Our introducer mentioned my book about her, The Year of Goodbyes. My father served on a warship during World War II, so I feel connected to World War II stories. I was also drawn by this sense that America, not everybody, but Americans are sometimes now turning away from the world, and this was a turning toward the rest of the world by Americans wanting to help other people. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is trains. I love trains. So give me a story about trains. And if anybody has a story about trains, I, who have taken overnight trains to various parts of the country, you tell me. You tell me, and I will credit you in the acknowledgments.
Trains are a lot of fun. So Debbie, you've written fiction, poetry, and nonfiction. I might say you're best known for your nonfiction books, and you've written about people, animals, and events that have fascinating true stories. Would you tell us a bit about your research process, and specifically about the research for The Friendship Train?
Well, my research process is long, so broad and deep, and I think that's typical for most of us authors of nonfiction. For The Friendship Train and for some of my other books, I'm lucky enough to live here in Washington, and so I'm lucky enough to be able to use the Library of Congress. I meant to bring up here my Library of Congress research card, and for The Friendship Train, what I used mostly at the library was the newspaper and periodical room, because this was an across-the-country event reported on mostly in small in big newspapers, but I wanted to get granular. I wanted to understand what were they thinking in this little Iowa town or in this little city in Missouri. So I needed a lot of local newspapers, and the Library of Congress has them. I've also used the Library of Congress manuscript room. So for example, when I wrote my book about, two books about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they have Ruth Bader Ginsburg's papers, and I was able to access them in the manuscript room. I've used the manuscript room. No, I used another section of the library. So 3 different sections of the library have been important in my research. The photographic division for research on A Dangerous Idea, which is about the famous Scopes monkey trial, the trial of evolution that happened in 1925. And you all have some great photographs from that event.
Yeah. I actually started out at the library in the newspaper and current
You
periodical
did. Thank
division,
you so much.
So the title of this discussion is Kindness is a Bridge to Friendship. Why do you think that this opportunity to be kind resonated so much with children across the U.S.?
Well, I think we can first start about 1947 when it happened. Children had lived through at least a couple of years of war, so they knew that there had been a war, and they knew that war was destructive. They probably knew people who had served and hopefully come back. But I think a lot of what happened was that the adults in their lives were enthusiastic about the friendship train and about helping. So there was a lot of activity at schools. A lot of school groups did what was necessary to gather the food, to raise money to buy food. And church groups and synagogue groups and all kinds of clubs, they all got involved. And why did those children want to help strangers, be kind to people that they didn't know? I think it's human nature, and I think today kids, well, they would do the same thing. Back then, in 1947, there was this nationwide, but of course entirely voluntary program called Silent Guest at Thanksgiving, and people were urged to set a table, an empty place at their Thanksgiving table. And they would call that the silent guest, and the money that would have been spent on a Thanksgiving meal was sent instead, not to the friendship train, but to another fundraising, food-raising event. Well, we may not have the nationwide silent guest program here, but we have had, it's been rejuvenated in recent years. Like I have a little card here from the World Food Program and from a local organization called KindWorks that a good friend of mine works for. And this says, feed a silent guest. And so I don't know if they're doing it every year. I think they are encouraging people, and people do it, to think about others, think about hunger, which is a problem in the world, and make donations.
So 2 things. This sounds very much like a story of community as well as kindness and friendship.
Yes.
Like local community and extended community.
Yes.
Idea of extended community.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're telling kids that they have opportunities to be kind today.
Yes, I really want to emphasize that it's not like kids back in 1947 were better or kinder than kids today. All the same.
So if folks visit your website, debbielevybooks.com.
Oh, yeah.
They'll see that you've written about a wide variety of topics, and that your writing has been honored with many, many awards. I'm sure that we have some young aspiring authors in the audience today. What advice would you have for them?
The first thing that I would say is read. Read broadly, but also focus on things that you love. And I would also say, you have your own voice, and you don't want to write in anybody else's voices, but read writers that have particularly strong voices, whether it's Jason Reynolds or Renee Watson or Kate Messner or Beth Kephart or Rebecca Stead. It's not even fair that I'm mentioning these names because there are many writers with strong voices, and it's not that you're going to imitate them, but you're going to see, how do they do this? And how can I make my book sound like me? Because you want your book to sound like you. I also encourage everybody of every age, you adults here as well, who want to write things, because you know you do, read picture books. Read aloud picture books. Get the rhythm of a picture book. Even if you think that's not what you're going to write, picture books are written with such close attention to language that they are great, great teaching tools. Then, once you get to writing, please don't think that you're going to write something and you're going to be done with it. You know you're not. You're going to have to write draft after draft after draft. Every one of the 85 authors here at the National Book Festival, we all do the same thing. It's really endless drafts. If I showed you like a computer screen of my drafts for this one little book, it would not be one computer screen of tiny little icons representing drafts. It would be many. And the last thing I'll mention to aspiring writers is to write freely. That is, when you sit down to write, just go with it. Don't try to get it right. Don't get your punctuation right. Don't make it look pretty. Just write freely. Get it down. There's nothing quite as wonderful as having a first draft to then mess around with.
Yeah, great advice, great advice. So we have mentioned that you've written about a wide variety of topics. I'm wondering if there is anything that out there that you have not written about yet that you are interested in writing about.
Well, sure. I'll mention two things.
Sounds good.
One is that I mentioned that my father served in World War II on a warship in the Atlantic and in the Mediterranean, and he had kept a journal, and he has a great story of when his ship got torpedoed. And so I would like to, and I'm working on it, but it's slow. I'd like to write something really engaging about that. There's something about, I mentioned I love ships. I also really like boats. I mentioned I like trains. I also really like boats. So to write a book that takes place on a boat, actually a 300-foot ship, would be good. And then I would just really like to write something laugh out loud funny. Don't hold your breath. But I'm always thinking about it.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Monica.
For the funny book.
I appreciate your confidence.
So what's next for you? What terrific things do you have in store for us to look forward to?
Well, I'll mention one book that is coming out, although I'm not quite sure when. It was supposed to be 2026, but those of you who are either in children's publishing or want to be in children's publishing, beware. It moves at a glacial pace. So this next book, it's a picture book. It's called Once We Were Strangers, and it is about the Jewish, but also really the universal precept of caring for, helping, and even loving the stranger.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to hop back to advice for writers, because I love to ask writers this question. What do you do when you have writer's block?
Oh, when I have writer's block?
Yeah. Or do you get writer's block?
I do get writer's block. I have writer's block as we speak. I usually do something outdoors. And I don't mean just like go for a walk. I might even just step away from writing for, a couple of days. And the reason it works for me, and it will work for you, is that if you don't walk or do whatever you're doing with your AirPods in, listening to a podcast. Fine, podcast, great. But walking with or doing whatever you're doing, I like to kayak, I like to cook with your own thoughts, can be very refreshing in terms of, it's almost like hitting a refresh button on whatever you might hit a refresh button on your clicker that doesn't work. Yes.
Most writers, I think, either while you're writing or after you've written a book, have something that you hope the readers take away from it. From The Friendship Train, what did you want young people to take away from this book?
I think mostly that problems in the world, because this is what we're talking about, problems in our community, in our nation, in the world that can seem so big. Well, they are big, but that doesn't mean we can't chip away at them by doing something small.
Yeah.
And especially you mentioned community, because the book is also about all these community efforts, especially if you do it in community with others. It's true, they didn't, solve hunger in Europe with the Friendship Train, but they chipped away at it. And the other thing that happens is that you build connection. There was a connection built. The children of France who sent back these, you'll see in the book, if you read the book, who sent back these gifts to the United States, they were not going to be meeting the children of the United States and vice versa, but the connection was felt, and I have a feeling it was lifelong for all of those people who, just to remind you, are all much older than me.
So I do want to give you a chance to talk about the illustrations. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but picture books are sort of this dance, I feel like, although not happening at the same time between the author and the illustrator. How do you think the illustrations in the book support the story?
Well, picture book writing really is a dance if you're not also the illustrator. I mean, I write the text first, and then we, that is the publisher, the editor, people from marketing, sales, all those people, we choose an illustrator, and then the illustrator brings the illustrator's vision to the project. And sometimes the vision isn't exactly what the author had in mind, and it's important for the author to give that space to the illustrator, because when most people pick up a picture book, I think, they're not looking at those little words on the page to begin with. What is attracting them is art. And so just as I don't expect an illustrator to say, Debbie, that adjective is really not the one that I would use, I should not be saying, in this case, Boris Kulikov, Boris, that color is really not what I would use. So in this book in particular, we stayed out of our ways, maybe even a little bit more than I have in other books, and I think it really worked out well. Boris's style is unique. It's not boilerplate at all, and I think his illustrations have this sense of both, this is a story about something from days gone by, mostly with his color palette, and this is a story that relates to me now. So, Boris, if you're listening, I'm happy.
Well, I want to give the audience a chance to be able to ask you some questions. So we've got two mics set up in the aisles here. If you have a question for Debbie, you could make your way to the mic.
If you don't, she's going to ask me more questions.
Great.
My voice is so loud that I'll actually probably just say it. But
Just for the recording.
Just for the recording.
Great.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Debbie, you mentioned all of the research that you do to come up with these beautiful stories. How do you distill what I imagine is just reams and reams of information into a very tightly woven story?
You need to, after the research, but also, you do go into the research with an idea, which can change, but you're looking for the story. So there's so much great stuff that isn't in the book, because it doesn't support the story. And you use that for school visits and for talking to people at events like this. Like, I'd be happy to tell you about why I use the word macaroni in this book so many times, but I'm not going to. So you look for the story, and you have to let go of of things that aren't supporting the story that you're telling. I think that's the best way I can answer it.
Thank you.
You mentioned you loved trains. Where's your favorite place you've been on a train?
Ooh, good question.
Well, I do love to take the train to New York, but I did take a train, the overnight train to Florida. I think it was all the way to Miami. That's a really long train ride, but I went with my family. I may have loved it more than they did, but we were happy, and it's just really, really fun. Oh, another great train ride was I went on the overnight train to Chicago when one of my boys was in college there, and I went on that train with my mother. And during that train ride, so this is very close to my heart, we did a lot of talking about what would eventually become my book about her experience growing up and leaving Nazi Germany. So there's my answer about trains.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
All right. Any more questions? Okay, looks like somebody's making their way.
You talked about watching World War II movies, and what was it, a couple of years ago? So did it take you 2 years to actually write the book? How long did it take you with all the research?
So I'm going to say, ha, 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 ha. We watched that movie. I saw that newsreel in 2014. Okay, I haven't been working on the book since 2014. It was just a little Easter egg, just a little thing that I had in mind, and I really didn't. It did take me a while to figure out: was it a picture book? Was it a middle grade book? Once I actually started writing, I was probably the research and the writing, it was probably going on for a good 2 years, and then another 3 years, I think, waiting for illustrations. Did I mention the word glacial before? Thanks for asking.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
Thank you for being here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm
Can
so
you
happy
tell?
You're here too. My question for you is, how do you know when the potential for a story has struck you? You're coming across information. Is there a moment where there's a story spark? How do you know that so that you can begin a project of this magnitude?
Well, it's usually on one of my walks or one of my paddles when I think, that's a story. So how do you know? It's really when you sort of jerk yourself and say, oh, that's a story. I'm not sure how helpful that is. Yes.
So when the idea grabs you, you know that's when you've got to follow through with.
Yes, it grabs you, you follow through, but also you have to be open to the possibility that you're wrong and that the approach that you think is right is wrong, but then hopefully you won't abandon the idea. Hopefully you'll come back to what you think is the right approach.
Right.
Hi.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of your session. So
I'm going to start all over again for you. Wait
No,
a
you may have answered the question I
Yes.
had. So more and more when I see my grandchildren and I want to instill some values into them, I think about what they have to, I won't say suffer, but what they have to deal with on a daily basis. Now, you write your books, and how do you write a book which is not preachy? Because I want to tell them that they're going to face these challenges, but there are ways to overcome it. Any ideas?
I'm so glad you said I would like to write it in a way that's not preachy, because nothing is, well, maybe something's more important, but it's very important for adults who are writing for children not to be preachy, not to be talking down. I think it just takes many, many drafts and other readers, editors, and, here's something I'm glad you asked, could have mentioned when talking about advice for writers, reading out loud. You know, when you read something out loud, you get to the preachy part, you're going to be boring yourself. It's going to, because that's what it's going to sound like. I don't know that I have a formula for how not to be preachy, but I think it's a huge advantage to start with the understanding that you shouldn't be, because then you'll be on then you'll be on the lookout to not be preachy and talking down and not be didactic. Thanks for that question.
Yeah. I think it probably helps that you're several books into your career and you really know your audience, I think, by now.
Well, thank you.
Well, Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today.
My
It
pleasure.
has been delightful talking with you as always. And I want to remind everybody in the audience that Debbie will be signing books from 12 to 1 today. So if you need to have a few extra moments with her, you have the opportunity to do that. Would you please help me thank Debbie Levy?
Oh, thank you.